Hey guys, it's John. I want to put this video out there to anyone who feels currently stuck right now. If you feel like you're in a system that's not currently serving you, if you want to move into the online space, maybe you're a PT and you want to leave that time for money, or you might be another coach already trying it and then you're just seeing other coaches out there earning significantly more, being able to travel and having that level of freedom that you want to have. And then you look at their content, you look at their page, and quite frankly, the results they produce aren't great, or you might not even see that many results, but you see the amount of volume of engagement and traffic they're getting, and you're wondering, how can I do that? I want to walk you through the exact blueprint that I use to take one of my clients to 20K per month. And this formula I've used time and time again. I work with over 400 fitness coaches now, and I've helped them scale to between $5,000, $10,000 and $20,000 per month. And they're no different from you when you apply yourself to the knowledge that you're probably missing. I know specifically what works for you, and if you pay attention and incorporate everything I'm going to go through in this 5-step plan, you'll make progress. You'll increase your income and you'll be in a better position to help more people, which is exactly what we want. It's not all about income. We want to have that impact and we want to be able to generate more wealth for ourselves. So let's get into it. Now, my client first started off on the gym floor, not knowing what to do online. They didn't know what content to post. They didn't know how to message people, how to price their service. And they were currently spent 5 years earning around the same income, around $3,000. And they're working sort of 50, 60 hours per week. And they saw others get results online, and they're just wondering, how on earth do I do this myself? And the first stage that we went through when they signed up with me after seeing one of my clients' results was, who are we trying to help? And I call this the avatar. People call this niching down. A lot of people niche down incorrectly. You need to understand the dream client in and out. And I just say client singular because if you're trying to help everyone, you can't, everyone doesn't think the same. And what you really need to do is enter an internal dialogue they've been having with themselves. And you get inquiries when you can speak someone's reality back to themselves. So if your content actually depicts what they're going through, the trust goes up. They feel like you know them, and that is a more important lever to pull more than just convincing them that you're more than qualified or just showing them how much you know. It's your ability to recall the situation, which is more important. So in order for us to do that, we have to understand the people we're trying to help. And most people start off with topics. So with us, we made a big shift away from topics and we moved into the pain. And where is the pain in the market? What people actually want to solve? Because again, there's no point us putting all our energy and effort into content and talking about things that people don't care about. I've actually made that mistake many different times in different businesses. I've sold genuinely awful products, but it was a passion project for my boss at the time, and everyone hated it. And it didn't, Kel Surprise didn't go anywhere. There was arrogance, and it cost us. So where's the pain? And then obviously, what problems are associated with that pain? What do people typically want to solve? Most people with general lifestyle, gen pop transformation, it's some level of fat loss, but deeper layers underneath that, it's the insecurities and it's the sense of lack of control. It's the sense of losing identity through different age brackets, which are really important. And particularly going from like 28 to 35-year-old, aging can accelerate and it feels like you're losing your youth a little bit, and you're going through a transition phase where families start. So you just got to understand what the reality goes through. So that's part of it. What do people want to solve? What do they need help with? And in the situation, what does their day-to-day look like? Going through and understanding and mapping out their day is really, really important because, again, it informs what they're currently doing, their behaviors, their habits, and all the barriers that are going to get in the way. Once you know this, you can then start to cater your content towards that, which we'll get onto. And then you've got to know their psychographic. Again, a lot of people don't touch on this, but if you understand the emotions, the thoughts, their behaviors, all the little micro actions they do in the day, you're doing everything you can to be informed to then describe that, and then that is going to help buy more trust and increase the rate of which people inquire with you, but also just the rate that you capture attention. Because again, how do you stand out from your competitors? How do you stand out from other coaches? Why would someone pick you over another coach with more exposure, more validation, more credibility? That's how. So understanding, I call it the avatar, but it's your niche. Niching down to one person to penetrate the market. Definitely meant that word on purpose. And then you get in deep into the psychographic of them, and then that's when you get that resonance, and then that's where you get the volume of people paying attention to you. So without that, we wouldn't have got off the ground. So huge stage, getting pinpoint precision on who we're trying to target. And off the back of that, right, let's start to create a journey for them. So this is the framework. Another thing people miss, if you don't know where you're taking people through, how on earth are you going to describe and entice them into your service? And yes, each client's different, everyone's got different goals, but you need to be able to have, you need to have the vision for them, I'll put it that way, because their imagination's awful. They don't know anything. And you have the knowledge, you have the context, you know what's possible. They don't. And I guarantee you, most clients you sign will probably be thinking of a 6-month goal. They'll probably think it's achievable in 12 weeks, but realistically it's a 6-month goal. They will not have a 2-year vision. You need to be the one to sell them that vision once they're on the inside of service, because it's always like, what do you take people through? Initial dieting phase, then maybe a maintenance, then there might be a bulking phase, then you go back into probably a recomp, maybe another bulking phase, diet. It depends on market. But it's always, what's their 1.0 version, let's call them Pamela. Pamela 1.0, what's Pamela 2.0, what's Pamela 3.0, after they've gone through a successive cycle with you all the way through from bulk cut maintenance, and then that's that picture of them, if they imagine themselves on a magazine cover. It's realistically that. You have to be thinking on that, and you have to take the responsibility to go to these places, because these clients, they have no vision, and you need to show them that and lead the way. Because I know that if we get a good framework and we get a 12-month roadmap and you can keep your clients on for longer, your income scales more quickly, you earn more income per clients, obviously, so you make more money, but it massively reduces the burden on acquisition, and it massively spikes referrals, because the longer you have with someone, the better relationship you can have, the more likely they're going to refer people to you, and then the better result you can produce with them with that time frame. So you get more indirect inquiries and you get more referrals. And again, this is a secret weapon for us, because it's a little bit of a spoiler, but this income, this number here, this monthly income, not a single outbound DM was sent. This is all inbound inquiries, and it happens when we start to scale beyond our own time. So we'll get onto that. But framework, do this, trust me, it works. This is how I've taken some of my clients towards 10K per month, 20K per month, and even some touching 30K per month. When they have a low level of exposure, they have a small following. I don't think I've got a single client on average over 10,000 followers. One of my clients has got 50, but the vast majority are under 10K. And it's very, very plausible to hit them income brackets when you can hold on to clients and leverage who you know. Massive, massive underrated value. So you need to go into those 2 goals we listed out, and then lay out a roadmap. And then that's when you need to kind of go into a little bit more detail and look at the phases that you take your avatar through. Again, yes, you have to adapt, you have to be diligent and be bespoke to the client that signs up with you, but you need to have some form of framework and reason for people to stay. If the phases change and you have purpose to that, that's a big point. With this client, a huge factor was selling the reversing out phase. It was a Gen Pop lifestyle transformation, predominantly fat loss, huge issues early on, as it had the issues for 5 years. It's actually the reason they could never get online to work. People would join for the 12 weeks and then they'd fuck off and go on holiday. He thought he was in the wrong market, wrong niche, and those were entirely false thoughts. It just came down to the fact we weren't giving them a reason to stay, and we weren't describing why they should go into the reversing out phase. As soon as we understood that and mapped out our own journey, and then started to communicate that within content, within clients, and then the phase structures, things started to pick up. The average retention went from 2.9 months, I think it was, or 2.3 months. I think it was 2.3, and it went to 6.9. And that was within our first year. So that's pretty much it's almost tripling the income he got from every single client that he took on. That's obviously monumental. He actually got over 100 grand just in extended retention. So that's 100 grand of value gained in the business without actually technically gaining a client. Obviously, we surpassed that with more clients coming in, but that's just the power of increasing your retention. So do the work, go through the programming, map out what 12 months would look like, and then think about objectives for each phase, and think about how well you can communicate the reason for those objectives, and how can you pivot and push those angles and put that into the content to describe why people should stay with you. I've learned this throughout the last 4 years. You need to be direct and obvious with social media. People are just so surface level thoughts. You need to go straight in and say what you mean and be quite hard angle with some of these points, which moves us on to the content. So content, obviously a huge important factor, because Content really conditions your audience, because we found that if you just put results up alone, it's really interesting. You start to attract people who just want, obviously, the outcome, but they're quite fickle, and then they're not too committal. When we found out, when we had obviously started to drip feed the problem content back in, where you do informative content and you're speaking, you're communicating with the audience, and you're laying down expectations, that plus the results, it attracted people who were already preconditioned what things would be like on the inside of service, and they had the right belief systems, the right attitudes, and they just got to work. So it was real life data from the fact that you can't always just post results. You need to position, put content toward, you need to put content towards the pain. You need to create content specifically around the problems, and also elements of your service as well. It's a real synergy between these 3 points. So what I mean by this flywheel here is, a third of the content should be geared towards talking about the problems that your clients are going through, or your dream avatar. What are the most painful problems, and what do they want to fix? Obviously, if we kind of focus on that, the algorithm will put that in front of people with those problems in time, and those are the people with the problems that this is perfectly designed to solve. So it's mentioning that, and then a huge thing that people don't do is talk about your framework. Show elements of the inside of your service. Talk about how the phase objectives solve these problems. Talk about the roadmap. Talk about what you've done with clients and how you've laid down this 2-year vision. Show the horizon, and because this actually ultimately forms the solution. When you look at the problems here, what's the next stage? Then you need to move into how you work. You need to position yourself as a solution. A lot of people talk about the problems and they give out solutions and facts and information, or just like, do this instead. Whereas the problems, you really want to create an open loop here. You don't really want to go straight into the solution, because you talk about the problems, it gets people pent up, and then they want to know what is the solution. They're hanging on, and then the next bit of content, or maybe next 2 days, you then show elements of how you go and how you turn up, how the check-ins, how you broach this problem in the check-ins, how you solve that for a client. They start to connect the dots. And when it becomes obvious that the service is the solution to those problems, the inquiry will increase. And then the last thing is just proof it works. It's the results. And we could pretty much track it. It took 3 months of conditioning, but when we started to incorporate the necessity for reversing out and how important that phase is, because most people can start a diet, but they can't bloody well exit one. You've never exited a diet. The average person starts about 8 diets a year. So that's once every 6 weeks. And the reason you do that is because you can't properly exit a single one. So you keep going back to square one. And when you don't exit a diet properly, you not only put the weight back on, but you probably put on a little bit extra, and you're stuck in this self-perpetuating cycle. So whatever diet you pick, make sure you exit one. And here's what I do with my clients. So it's just explaining why that phase is so important. And we drip fed that amongst the problems. And then the clients that we attracted into the inquiry form, they then started to ask preferentially for our 6-month package, because they want this to be the last diet they've been on. And they wanted to commit to the process because they understand that they haven't exited properly. So again, that came from us showing the framework, and then being pedantic and consistent enough to put that message, and then people then started to understand. So again, that helped us. And then we systematically reviewed the feedback of this. And then now we keep pushing the roadmap. We're putting the next phase. We're talking about the bulking phase. We're splitting it into different sections. And now we're pushing our average retention towards 10 months. So again, 10 months with every single client that joins you, what would that do for your business? What would that do for your income? And just your sanity and your mental stability. If you knew that every single client's coming in and you got 10 months to a year with them, and you know you're averaging 1 to 2 inquiries per week is what our minimum metric is. Every single client I take on with, that's my metric for them. Can we attract 2 clients per week? Can we do that? Can we hold on to clients for 8 months, maybe 10 months? If we can do that, that's a $10,000 per month business guaranteed. And then it's a question of refining what works and then doing more of it to get to this figure. So content is really important to rotate around these and keep it consistent. And then as you go through, you can start to kind of pick up different elements of your roadmap and put it into the framework. And again, obviously with the problems, you're just gonna have to refine that. If you're stuck on any of this, obviously I work one-to-one with people. You can book in a call below or inquire. I'll go through your situation. We can find out exactly what's holding you back, or which part of this process is your bottleneck, because it will be one of these 5 things, guaranteed. The results come from the basics. 90% of all the results and all the income I produce for my clients, over 4.2 million over the last several years, it's come down to the basics of the business. It's never anything too technical or too complex. It just takes an experienced eye to understand exactly what the specific issue is, and we fix that bottleneck and then move on to the next. So content, and then once that's flowing and it's attracting the right people who are conditioned to stay for longer, which again increases how quickly we can get income because we're not having too much churn. And then we're driving up the inquiries because we understand them more, and we're refining this continually over time. So the inquiry is going up at this point. The length of time people stay with us is ticking up over time. So we're holding on to people for more, we're attracting more. And then we can turn our attention to the next bit, which was service. How do we improve our service? And this is a secret weapon for the referral stage, because when your service is that good, people will talk about it. And word of mouth is incredibly potent. And no matter all your effort you put into this, if one of your clients is so passionate about what you do because you changed their life, and they do not shut up about it to their 5 close contacts or everyone at work, that is significantly more powerful in terms of sales than you trying to outreach to those people. Plus, we don't like outreach. Plus, it's too much of your time. At some point, we need to scale beyond your bandwidth and time. Start off with service, because if we can drive up referrals, and that was our next target for us, can we average 1 referral per client that we sign up? And it's a really good target and thing for you to aim for. Can you average 1 referral? Because if you can do that, you know your service is really good, plus it massively feeds back into the inquiry rate. So how do we improve our service? Onboarding is probably the most important thing, because you only get 1 first impression inside of service. And if you can really impress people within those first 7 days, their viewpoint and opinion of you kind of sets in stone. Really hard to undo a bad onboarding, and you don't always know what your clients think. So you need to make sure that communication is really on point. You've got videos, you've got welcome messages, you've got personalized walkthroughs, you're doing roadmaps, you're doing everything it takes to lay out the expectation. You might need a bit of a carrot and stick model here, where the carrot is obviously the roadmap and showing the enthusiasm, the tonality of how you communicate, showing what's coming up for them with their vision. And then the stick is a little bit more the financial instructions, incentives, if you're doing commit and save offers, all that sort of stuff. So you need to set things up and set expectations and launch them correctly. And then check-ins is the next best thing. I'm not shy about this, but I can't stand Loom check-ins, because I really think it creates this teacher-student relationship, and it creates distance between the coach and the client. And the one thing you need if you're working remotely and building a relationship remotely, some intercontinental sometimes, is you need to build rapport. How do you do that when communication is encouraged to shut down? So I like voice notes, keeping things simple here. Some of the best check-ins I've had after testing loads of different businesses, it's just in WhatsApp, it's voice notes in WhatsApp. So audit your check-ins. Are people adhering to it? What's your check-in form look like? Repetitive, boring, long-winded check-in forms will repel clients like no end. And no matter how much effort you spend on acquisition, if your check-ins are terrible, you're just going to bleed clients unnecessarily. So audit your check-ins. And then we need to look at your communication. And it's obvious, but our ability to help a client, our ability to communicate with tonality, again, voice notes are king here, because only about, I think it's 7% of communication is the written word. There's like another 30%, 20%, I forget the exact numbers, but that's the tonality, and then the rest is body language. So if you're just sending a text and you send it, and then you could go, great, can do better on this. You could be going, great, can do better on this, but sounds good. And then you might rush that. And then the person reading that might take that as direct criticism. They might read it in a moody tone. And it's just little things like that, where it's easily avoided with a voice note, that you can start to change how they view of you, and you don't have their context, they don't have your context. Just avoid that situation. So our ability to communicate, what happens if a client ghosts us? What happens if a client's not pulling their weight? What happens if a client is just really hard to work with? What happens if a client is putting in the effort but they're not getting a result? That's a big one. That's a big one I help with a lot of my clients. How do we address that? How do you then not make it personal, not put it on the person, but address the behavior? How then do you identify that? How do you trouble fix that? How do you get a response out of someone who's like trying to get out of the service? And then when someone wants to leave and you know within your heart it's the wrong decision, how do you 180 that drop off? The amount of times I do that, I get messages, John, help. They send me a message on WhatsApp. What do I do? We voice note backwards and forwards. We work it out. Right, the context of this one. You remember when they said this? Bingo. We need to bring that up and we need to kind of ask sincerely with a voice note. We say this, this, and this. And then sometimes we just need to give them permission to exit. That will create the reverse psychology for them to lean in. And then we lean into that first reason. So just improving our ability to communicate and helping people get a result for themselves was king here, because it shows you care. And that's 5-star service. For cheesy 5-star service, but it genuinely is. When you're empathetic and you can help people action the tasks you set, that is everything. Because again, it's the people skills which really leads to the referrals. And when you do get referrals, your life becomes very easy indeed. Because again, it's just free signups. You can incentivize them with schemes. You can do percentage off service. You can do them rewards. And you can give them like cashbacks and things like that for the client, for the new client, for the existing client. You can encourage that, but to be honest, when you're good enough, they just come in directly. And that comes down into two things, which I can see one of here. I don't think I wrote it down. First thing, results. You just get better at what you do. It's one of those things every time, but if you know how to drop body fat, if you know how to program, if you know how to get macros on point, if you know how to sort out someone's digestion, if you can spot the signs, if you just get really good at what you do, that's really helpful. But understanding people, giving someone a plan and that person actioning a plan, two incredibly different things. So the missing thing here, which is ironic, which is probably the most important thing, is people skills, your ability to improve your communication so you can get a response out of people, you can build rapport out of people, you can motivate people, you can hold people accountable to the higher version of themselves they're so desperately trying to cling to. And ultimately, it's you who's going to come in and save the day, because we do not rise to reach our dreams, we fall to the lowest level of our standards. So if you can be the one to stand up and hold that bar high, which is basically the minimum standard, and you have that accountability, they'll thank you for it, and they'll respect you for it, and they'll refer you for it. So just improve your communication, get better at what you do. And then obviously you can directly ask as well. Knowing when to ask, knowing how to ask, using the right phraseology, timing it right, and then incentivizing people along that way. That's really helpful, because again, sometimes you can grease the wheels. Being top of mind is really important. Obviously, you are like 2% of someone's week, if you think about it. The vast majority of the time, mostly asleep, mostly at work, then they're doing in the gym, then they might communicate with you a little bit. How many other people are they speaking to, you know? So sometimes it is a little bit of like staying top of mind, thinking, asking in the right way so they actively think rather than a binary yes or no answer. Little things like that can go a long way. But once you're fully up and running, this is where it compounds, because I think right now, we're averaging like 10 inquiries a week. On a high season. Low season is about 5. So it's between 5 inquiries and 10 inquiries a week. The audience size is like under 3,500, I think. So not massive followers. Again, we know how to leverage other people's followings. We know how to increase our network properly with good referral strategies. But pretty much 70% of inquiries now are all referrals. They're all people inquiring, and when you put on the end of the form, why do you want to work with me specifically? Saw your so-and-so's result, they put in a good word, or that so-and-so mentioned you, or so-and-so said this, or so-and-so said that. And it's the irony is we're spending less and less time doing the marketing. We're spending more and more time just coaching people and doing what we turned up for, working inside the service, working one-on-one, helping people improve how they feel about themselves. And when your life is spent with that, and you know, we've increased the volume of check-in blocks now. We're now doing like 4 or 5 check-in blocks a week, over almost triple figures now. We've almost got 100 clients, and we're just making sure that we're filtering out the bad ones, because you're always going to get some ones which don't adhere. But the vast majority of time is just full of people just getting results, enjoying the process, and just being thankful. And it's just once you get into the numbers, sometimes it's hard to remember exactly what you do for people. And then you get a message which just hits home, where it could be them wearing that dress, it could be them chasing after the kids, it could be them going to see their elderly relative and then not being recognized. There's all these little events that you can fill your day up with, and it can be quite consistent. And the income's obviously great, but it's that level of fulfillment you get from all these activities constantly happening from all these different clients when you're attracting the right people. It's fantastic. So I'm really, really happy and proud of the client because I know the reality they have now. I know how full their day is. They do PT for free, ironically, now, because they just want to work with people they want to work with. They don't charge. Their price has gone up significantly. They're very happy with what they do. This is all online income now. Not any of this is PT. So it was like we started from scratch and zero with online. Everything was PT, it was 3,000 from PT. And then this is all generated online now. And it's just day and night difference. So you have to go through the 5 stages in my recommendation to actually build a long life sustainable business. That's really predominated around increasing the amount of time people stay with you and attracting the right people in. And once you've got that, it's a quicker, better way, more peaceful way, more enjoyable way to build a business. If you want the same, obviously I do this for a living. I've helped 400 people do this. You can inquire below, fill out a form. It's literally just me in this business. There's no one else in it. I will be voicing it to you, no doubt, and we can have a conversation and we can pinpoint whatever is holding you back. But I want you to be encouraged because every single coach I've helped, they are no different from you. They all started at one point, and when they applied their hard work with the right knowledge, it started to produce results. You might just be missing that key bit of information, that key bit of knowledge, that key insight of what you're already doing with a bit of strategy, and then all your efforts will be rewarded once it's applied in the right way.